All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker. Bryan Hayes, Gord Miller. You're a fan of the Stones coming in, huh? You're a fan of the Stones coming in. Yes, I love the Stones. I love the Stones.
Flunk grade 11 for them.
Is that right?
That is a true story.
Well, I remember you telling me that story, actually.
So I went to see that, middle of grade 11 exams. They were playing in Boulder, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Mark Firsteno's older brother was at the University of Colorado, and Rolling Stone magazine said it was their last tour, 1981.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah. Well, you'd think Rolling Stone magazine would know.
Right. Although the Stones, they can promote, right? And they've been promoting in 81, 89. I think I've seen them at least twice in this is a finale type of situation.
Yeah. Well, I've seen them like 8 times since then. But so picture a football stadium, if you will, and picture the stage at one end. Now picture the upper deck, the last section at the other end, and like the third last row. That's where we sat.
Probably still worth the trip. It's all about the atmosphere, right?
In a Datsun B210 from Edmonton to Boulder, Colorado.
There you go. Well, now you got the story. That's the beauty of it, right? I saw him in Halifax. I was at SARS Stock. Were you at SARS Stock, Gord?
I was not in town for that.
You did not make that.
No,
that was an absolute gong show.
I met Charlie Watts in New York.
Is that right?
Was doing a game in New York, and he was sitting in a hotel restaurant. He sat down right next to me. I was dying.
Mm-hmm.
I was dying. Charlie Watts sat reading a book, ordered a bowl of soup, and I'm sitting next to him like, ugh. And so finally he finished the soup. He got up, and I said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm a huge fan." And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "I didn't think I had huge fans."
There you go.
That was it.
Charlie, moving on. Yeah, he was the man.
Can't go now.
Not the same without Charlie Watts.
No.
Is that what you're saying? Bill Wyman would have been playing in 81. He's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, to me, Charlie, Mick, Keith, that was kind of the, even Bill Wyman kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, Billy he'd just sit there with that bass and not move. It was a thing of beauty.
And then it turns out, if you read his book, he was like by far the most promiscuous Rolling Stone.
Always. Like the bassists
and he kept track.
Yeah. The bassists are always wild. Like they just sit up there. They're so unassuming. You have no idea what they're really bringing to the table. And then they get off the stage and they are insane.
I saw
it's almost a lock across the board. Any big rock band, if you want to party, you got to get with the bassist. That guy knows what's up.
I saw an interview with Charlie Watts one time, and he said, "I hate traveling. I hate touring, but I can't play the drums at home."
Mm-hmm. Got to do it.
Oh,
they're the best. Yep, they are the best. Mick's still he's still pumping out kids.
Yeah,
like Mick Jagger and Robert De Niro just recently had
Al
kids.
Pacino,
Al Pacino too.
Yeah, it's like
all three of them in their 80s.
Well, Keith Richards is going to be 80 in December.
Yes, that is one of the great accomplishments in human history.
Why are we exercising? Why are we having the salad instead of the fry?
I don't know.
Why are we
when in doubt, follow the lead of Keith Richards. I think that's a smart way of living your life.
Maybe not.
No, maybe not.
He might be a statistical anomaly.
He probably is. Yeah, that's probably valid. But we got to play a lot of Stones throughout the afternoon. Why not? When in doubt, I would say go with that. And you got the Jays back in action tonight. You got the NBA releasing all of the details on their in-season tournament.
I'm trying to. Okay.
Are you excited for this, Gord?
No,
this is going to be very different.
This seems so contrived.
Mm.
Now maybe it catches on. Like, you know what? Maybe we felt the same way about the FedEx Cup playoffs when it started in golf. Maybe and it's kind of over a dozen years. It's grown some roots.
Yes, absolutely.
This just seems like an attempt by a North American league to mimic something that happens in Europe. So, like, for example, English soccer, they have the FA Cup during the season. When you try to explain soccer to people, there's 3 competitions that go on simultaneously. It's hard to understand, but it's great. The difference is North American pro leagues love the idea. They're just terrified of other countries. They don't want to get other countries involved. So
in which way? In terms of how they operate? Or
if you wanted to have a real Champions League kind of format, invite teams from Spain and Italy.
The problem is they're so inferior, it wouldn't work. Like you couldn't have an NHL Champions League with, the Vegas Golden Knights playing Frölunda.
But what would happen?
You can't have that.
What would happen? The problem for the NHL is what would happen if Frölunda won.
Well, that would happen at some point.
Yeah,
undoubtedly that would happen.
So That's why they don't do it.
But not consistently. Like an NHL team would win the Champions League every single year.
It's just, the World Cup with Team North America.
So goofy.
But just like, because they don't really want to have, they wanted to have a tournament which had their players. They wanted a world tournament with NHL players in it. And this sounds like the NBA thing's the same thing. They want to have an international style tournament with their players only.
Yeah, and I think what the NBA needs to be careful here is, and I would use that World Cup as an example, the Hockey World Cup. Everyone understands it's a business. Everyone gets it. Yeah. Everyone understands money's involved in this. But you can't be so transparent that it's just simply about grabbing money, right? Like I would use the Olympics as an example of that. The IOC is not running on the cheap. No. They make a fortune, and they enforce their rules diligently. If you don't have the rights, you ain't getting us. No. You got to pay to play. Yet, the Olympics, they've done a beautiful job of making everyone believe it's just about amateur athletes chasing gold and silver
they also
and bronze.
Disperse, but also, like, national Olympic committees depend on that, right?
No, sure, but I'm saying from a viewing standpoint, what I'm saying, Gord, is money and finances never factor in to the conversation about the Olympics. It's always hokey. It's always about the story. And, hey, here's little Johnny from Flin Flon, and he's doing. Meanwhile, the IOC is making a fortune, and the host cities are spending a fortune. There's so much economics involved, where with the World Cup of hockey, it felt so contrived because of what you said. They had to rejig the rules effectively so that they could get their guys involved. They could make more money. They could have people feel more included, players feel included, and people saw right through it.
Do you remember when they launched the last one? And they had like Crosby and Kane and Lundqvist, and Henrik Lundqvist was asked. He's on this stage with Bettman and all these guys, and was asked, "Could this be bigger than the Olympics?" Like, oh no. And it's like
just immediately deflating.
So so this NBA thing. Now I will say this: it replaces it. It's not added on.
No, it's steeped into the regular season.
So these group games that they've developed. So
there's 5 teams in each group.
In 6 groups?
And there's 6 groups. So the Raptors are in Group C of the East. East Group C. They're in with the Celtics, the Nets, the Bulls, the Magic. So they will play those 4 games, 2 at home, 2 on the road. And those will count.
And those are regular season games.
Those are regular season games that now all of a sudden are two-sided because they also factor into whether or not you can qualify to get into the elimination stages of this in-season tournament. And what's kind of listen, I appreciate them trying something different. Sure. I am very skeptical that this will work. I am very skeptical that the fans will buy into it, and I am not naive enough to believe that this is anything but Adam Silver and the owners trying to create some sort of different revenue stream. But that doesn't mean it can't pay off for the fans. The problem is North American sports is a playoff sports scene. Yeah. The European soccer is a regular season sports scene.
The biggest title in England is the regular season
title. It's the Premiership. Yeah, they don't have playoffs.
Well, they do.
No, they don't.
Well, the FA Cup does. The FA Cup's
but if you're chasing the Premiership, you play your 38 games, you play every team twice, and whoever's got the most points, you win, you hoist the trophy. Yeah. Not 1 through 8 moves on to the playoff stage. Like, that doesn't happen. You're right in terms of qualifying for the FA Cup, qualifying for the Champions League, and then you can move on beyond that. But in terms of the actual league, the Premiership, it's just we play every team twice, 38 games. There's 20 teams in here. Who's gonna have the most points? Here in North America, the regular season is so watered down because it's about building towards the playoffs.
Which is too bad, because actually the regular season champion in the NHL should be recognized more.
I agree with you.
That's a hard thing to do.
Very difficult to do.
To have the best record in the NHL, the NBA, in the regular season,
right,
is really hard to do.
Well, like baseball,
right?
Baseball was they were holding on for as long as they could because baseball was about the pennant race. Baseball was about trying to basically win your league, and there were only so many teams that punched a ticket. 4 teams generally that would get in. And it really was about making the 162 count. And even baseball eventually concluded, in this landscape in North America, we've got to expand the playoffs, and we've got to make the playoffs meaningful. So even they eventually wilted.
Do you think part of this with the NBA is that the load management thing has become such a thing, right? Guys sitting out regular season games, that they're trying to maybe juice the regular season a little bit right? So that guys will play. So maybe in the group stage games of the NBA Cup, the group stage of the NBA Cup,
right?
And maybe 30 years from now, people will be talking, oh, what group did the Raptors get? But do you think that maybe part of that is trying to re-inject some meaning into the regular season?
I think that certainly is a part of it. I think the rules that they've put in, the way that they're operating within the structure of this tournament, would indicate the NBA is well aware that the regular season is meaningless for a lot of players, for a lot of teams, or they're willing to throw away games. And they're willing to take nights off for load management, or because they feel like they're going to beat that team anyway, or in some cases they feel they're going to lose
They're not
anyway.
going to beat that team.
They're not going to beat that team. They're not going into Milwaukee on the road on a back-to-back to win, so forget it. Take those guys out. So what they've done, because that clearly was something they thought of. So in a way, they've admitted that they have this issue, because they were fearful that if they made these games standalone games, teams would just tank them.
Right.
So that's why they're included in the regular season.
So what happens is, after the group stage, the top 8 teams.
Yes.
The 6 group winners and the 2 best records.
And then the best 2 from the East. From the East and from the West. One from the East, one from the West.
We'll go to the quarterfinals.
Yes.
And then, but what'll happen is, from what I understand, is 2 games will be held back from your schedule.
Right.
In case you make the quarterfinals.
Yes.
Because your quarterfinal, potentially your semifinal game, will become 2 of your regular season games.
Exactly.
But the 2 teams in the NBA Cup final will actually play 83
They'll play 83 games.
They'll play an extra game.
That will be the championship game will be a standalone game that will not count for the regular season. So they'll play their 82 regular season games, just like the other teams in the NBA. But the championship game of the NBA Cup will be a standalone game. But what they've also put on the line is incentive for the players in those games past the group stage where you make money. So if you make it to the quarterfinals, I believe every player immediately will make $50,000. If you get to the semis, you're going to make $100,000. If you get to the finals, each player, if you win it, will get a $500,000.
So just to be clear, the guy that you see on TV at the end of the bench, who never plays, like waves the towel,
will make money.
Right? If
his team wins, he gets $500,000. He may not play a second of the NBA Cup, and he will get $500,000. That's a pretty good life. That's a really good life. So, yes, the NBA is admitting we have an issue here. So we're going to make sure that these games count so our own coaches and GMs don't sue us.
Right.
And then we're going to put money on the line so our players don't sue us.
So and
that's basically what they're doing.
So the difference in the NHL is that in the NBA, better teams win way more often.
Yes, and especially at home.
Right. So like we've talked about this before, like every year in the NHL, an 8 seed beats a 1 seed. Happens all the time.
Right.
It does not happen very often in the NBA. I think it's Grappler will know. I think it's twice in the last.
I know Golden State did it against Dallas.
It's like
1 year.
It's like twice in the last 20 years, and 8 seeds being a 1 seed.
Technically, Miami just did it, I guess, against Milwaukee this year.
But it's rare. So even in the regular season, you can sit a guy out and know you'll still be okay. I don't think the Leafs, for example, would voluntarily sit Austin Matthews 6 times. Like sit at the start of the year and go, okay, he's not going to play that game, and think we'll be okay anyway.
Right.
Like you have to be very careful in hockey because
you do.
The margin between making it and not is pretty slim.
It generally only happens it happened with the Leafs at the end of the year this year. They knew they were second seed. They knew they had home ice. They sat Matthews. They sat Marner a couple of games. And I think they maybe sat Riley a game, maybe Tavares a game. But you're not going to do it in November or December.
Now, in the NBA, you do that because if you're Golden State or Denver or Miami, you kind of know you're going to make it. Like
generally speaking, the high-end teams are well aware of it.
Barring a horrible run of injuries, and
what also ends up happening in the NBA is what goes around comes around. So one night you're like, you know what, we're going to sit our guys, but we're going to run into a team down the road that's going to sit their guys.
Right.
So we'll just make up for it. Even if we float a loss out here, we're going to get gifted a win down the road. So there turns out there's about 40 to 45 games that actually mean something, where everyone's playing and everyone's rested and healthy. Yeah, that's an arbitrary number, but you know what I'm saying. And those are kind of the make or break games over the course of an NBA season. But this is creative. It's different. I will say, I think the other leagues, the NFL's different, totally different. They don't need anything else, and they've got a shortened schedule. But I would think Major League Baseball and the NHL for sure will be looking at this, and if it works, if there is more revenue, if there is more money, if the players buy into it, and what needs to happen eventually is the fans buy into it,
right?
Then this is the NBA taking a leap and trying something. And I think other leagues may benefit, but the NBA is going to get the head start.
I think the NHL has looked at. I know the NHL has looked at a mid-season Ryder Cup type, for lack of a better term, format. So either a North America against the world, Canada against the world, or Canada, USA, Finland, Sweden, playing a little mid-season.
Really?
Instead of the All-Star game.
See, that I would be a proponent of that. Like if you got best on best,
yeah,
even if it's in a shorter form and it's not your conventional way of building towards crowning a world champion, it's better than the All-Star game, undoubtedly. But yeah, if you got Canada versus the U.S., even a best 2 out of 3 Canada versus the U.S. every other year, instead of the All-Star game, we're doing that. I think people would be a huge fan of that. Now, would the players do it?
Well, I think they would.
I don't know.
The players want. Here's the problem. The players want best on best. They want the Olympics.
Yes.
The players want the Olympics. The NHL doesn't want the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
They get no revenue from it. It's in the middle of their season. They don't like it. And don't forget, the NBA plays in the Olympics in the summer.
In the summer, yeah.
In the summer. And
it's massively beneficial.
And when the IOC was trying to reduce the size of the Summer Olympics and suggested the NBA, let's move basketball to the winter, they're like, no chance. Nope, not doing it. So the NHL doesn't like the Olympics.
Right.
But the Olympics are still the players' dream. For Europe, especially European players, but even North American players. Now, I wouldn't say North American players would necessarily put the Olympic gold medal above the Stanley Cup. A lot of Europeans would. A lot of European players would. And they're 40% of the league. So in the NHL's case, if they could come up with something that satisfied that hunger for best on best international hockey and push the Olympics to the side, that's win-win-win for them.
Yeah, that could be very, very beneficial for multiple parties. Like ultimately, as a fan, I'm seeking that out. I think it's embarrassing that we've gone almost 10 years without truly best on best.
I agree with you. And I would say this, and I mean this is no disrespect to Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid's the best player in the NHL. Would you agree?
Yes.
He is the best. He's the NHL's marquee player.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say that if he walked down the street of any major American city, most people would not know who he was.
It's probably true.
I would venture to say that if Lionel Messi did it, he would be mobbed.
In any American city?
Yep.
We've had that conversation. I don't buy that.
I think he's
I
think if Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, any of those big stars.
Not in the States. Not like maybe in coastal cities, it's one thing. If they're walking in Times Square where, you've got a lot of people from around the world. I don't think Lionel Messi walking down the street in Des Moines, I don't think anyone knows who he is. I don't think if he walks down the street in Denver, Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, he's going to see the Stones. I don't think people are saying, hey, there's Messi.
So
Americans do not operate that way.
Who do you think is a bigger brand in North America right now overall, Messi or McDavid?
It'd be Messi.
Okay, and he just started playing in North America.
Yes, although you've noticed that it's already died down a little bit on tracking exactly what he's doing.
But why are Ronaldo and Messi and these guys such big brands in North America when they don't play here?
Well, I think
because soccer does a great job of exposing its players. I mean, the World Cup. Now they're careful with the Olympics too. Don't forget, like the top guys don't play soccer.
No,
but the World Cup, the Champions League, like they expose these guys best on best all the time.
Well,
every year.
I think those two are different.
European Football Championship,
yes,
like Euro.
But like Ronaldo and Messi are transcendent. They're different because of who they are. They're arguably the two greatest players ever. If not, they're in the top 5, top 10. And they're also older. They've been around for a long time. They've been on the radar for a long time. Like, I don't think Kylian Mbappe walks down the street in New York and anyone knows who he is. I don't think Mbappe's got that type of recognition. He hasn't done it long enough. He hasn't been around long enough.
Do you think he does at some point?
Possibly, if he continues at this rate. He's already got a World Cup. He had that magical game against Argentina in the last one. He's, he is the guy now.
But you know what I mean? I
understand what you're saying, but there is a line where it becomes, okay, McDavid is bigger than that guy.
So for the last 10 years, it's going to be 10 years this year. Really, we haven't had, I don't know if you count the World Cup in 2016 or not.
No, not in terms of true best on best.
We haven't seen real best on best hockey in a decade.
It's since 2014.
And that is a huge lost opportunity.
Right, but I don't think them being in the Olympics changes the conversation we're having. McDavid being in the Olympics does not mean all of a sudden he walks down the street in Miami and everyone's like, man, there's McDavid. Like, it's a different conversation because of the nature of the sport. The sport is not big enough, popular enough, but it can get there if you do it long enough. Like, I would use Wayne Gretzky as an example. Gretzky has not played in the league in well over 20 years. But Wayne Gretzky were to walk down the street in many American cities, people would be like, that's Wayne Gretzky. Like, they know Wayne Gretzky because it's a brand, because it's bigger and it's been around, and like McDavid hasn't got there yet, partially because of the international, but also
plays in Edmonton.
Gretzky hasn't won a cup.
Gretzky played in LA and New York.
Yeah, and Gretzky established all those records and was such a phenomenon, and then won all those cups, and then the trade to LA, then was in LA, St. Louis, New York, and then it just became this thing where I think even American fans are like Gretzky, like he was synonymous with the sport. He was bigger than the sport.
I was going to say he was one of the rare athletes who was bigger than his sport.
Yes,
and I should say, people watching in Edmonton, he also I know he played in Edmonton as well. I'm saying he played in New York and LA, which made him bigger
in the States, of course.
States. Yeah, I think that. So to loop it back, I think this missed sort of opportunity that the NHL's had for the last 10 years to try to build their product. It's really too bad. It's a real missed opportunity.
I agree. Well, and I would say, again, you look at what the NBA is doing here. The NBA is making a fortune. The amount of money that they're making off TV deals, their international brands, how popular the sport is in China. It's an international empire that the NBA has created. And yet they're still trying to find ways to get creative and find different avenues, which you could argue is somewhat unnecessary. Like, you could look, if you're the NBA, you could look around and say franchise values are higher than they've ever been. They skyrocket every single year, year over year. We have superstars. We've got big brands. We're making a fortune. The TV deals are insanely lucrative.
They get bigger and bigger.
We could just sit here and live off that. Instead, Silver and company are like, what else can we do? The NHL appears to be just comfortable with the bar they've set. They don't want to change the bar. They don't want to go south. They don't want to get worse. I think they've found a comfort zone, and they're like, this is who we are. And that's fine.
I think they want to be more. They just can't figure out how to do it.
But why? They don't even try to do it, Gord.
Well,
they have not tried anything creative in the NHL in a long, long time.
I would say this about the NBA. If they created this NBA Cup and added 6 more games, like, so say you're a Raptors fan. Okay, so they're going to add. You're playing in this group of 5, right? So you're gonna add 2 more regular season games, my season ticket package for this thing. I'm out. I don't want that. That's a gouge. But it's not. It's just regular season games in a different format, which is kind of the genius of it. They're not, as much as it is a cash grab in a way, it's a bit of a.
I'm curious how they promote it once we get there. Like, how is the team promote? Are you promoting that it's just a game against the Celtics tonight, or is this the NBA Cup tonight?
So tonight's the NBA Cup game, and the Raptors are in. The Raptors have a chance to win Group C,
right?
And that could get them into the quarterfinals.
Is it more must watch? Like, I don't think it will be originally, because I think a lot of people will be confused by it, will not understand it, or will not even be privy to it. And people will turn it on and be like, "Oh, I didn't even realize there was an NBA Cup game tonight." But when they get to Vegas, which is where the Final Four is going to be for this. That will be different and unique.
And that's, again,
they're going to be in Vegas.
And that's something else they're trying to capitalize on, Final Four.
Yes.
There's the magic word.
People to come in.
Get people to come in. And
stay in.
They look at college basketball, and we want a piece of that.
Absolutely.
We want to. And the funny thing is, you talk about innovation, and I agree with you. People criticize the NHL for the glowing puck, like when Fox had the glowing puck. They tried something.
Not always going to work.
They tried to attract new viewers. They tried to expand the tent. You can't criticize people for trying things when it's just a gross money grab. I think the World Cup, the Hockey World Cup was that.
Yeah,
was just a gross money grab. I wonder if this will be like the FedEx Cup playoffs. I wonder if in in 10 years this grows roots.
Well, they have to commit to it.
Yeah.
Right? You can't throw it out in 2 or 3 years because you're not
the
into
thing
it.
With the World Cup. There was one in 04.
Right.
Then there's one in 16.
In 16, now they're done. Now they might bring it back at 25 or 26. Yeah, you can't have it that way. It's like the World Baseball Classic as well. Like that was really, eyes were rolling when that was established. In the first couple of years, it was a little bit shoddy. I still wouldn't say it's must-see TV necessarily, but it is in certain parts of the world. In Japan, it did very well. In Central America, it did very well.
Which is the whole point. Which is the exact idea of it, to grow the sport.
Right.
Outside the United States.
And Canada or U.S. versus Japan in the final, like that was something I was intrigued by. I wanted to see it. I wanted to know what was going on. I wasn't tracking the whole tournament, but at some point it grabbed me. And that's probably worth it. Like that's worth the investment. That's worth the commitment. You don't do it all the time, but you got to have a schedule. You got to have a plan. You got to commit to it and hope at some point it just becomes a part of the routine if you're a fan. Like naturally, this is something that's different, this NBA in-season tournament. But in 10 years, it may just be natural that we talk about it as a completely different entity within the world of the NBA.
Can they name the trophy after, can it be the Oscar Robertson Cup?
Well, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be the McDonald's NBA in-season. Like at some point, they're going to sell that.
It's going to be the Coca-Cola Cup.
Yeah, of course. Like at some point, they're going to put some sort of price tag on everything. What it's called, the MVP trophy,
It'll be a Big Mac. Is that what you're saying?
It very well could be. But you got ESPN and TNT involved.
Yeah.
Right?
So
the big boys are involved down in the States.
From their point of view, right? From their point of view, they're like,
we'll take it.
Anything that dresses up a mid-December regular season game.
And that's exactly what it is.
They're on board, right?
Exactly. They're like, sure, we'll do that. Why not? We can promote it as something different. You got to see it. You got to check it out. Now, it's on the players to commit. Players show up and mail it in or don't look necessarily. Like, this is where the partnership comes up. The CBA, they always talk about it. We're partners.
Yeah.
This is where the players, if you're the NBA, you got to get to the players and say, guys, you've got to be prepared for this. You've got to play. You've got to talk it up. You got to say this is something we're really excited about. Fake it to make it. Because if you don't, then why would the fans, right? Like, let's say it's, Scotty Barnes is asked about it on the eve of the first World Cup game, and he's like, honestly, I couldn't care less. Well, then why the hell would I care?
Right.
Like if Scotty doesn't care.
Is it the NBA Cup? I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. If he's playing dumb or whatever, using him as an example, there needs to be a commitment here because if not,
who's James Harden? Which group is Philadelphia in?
That's a good question.
I'm going to say James Harden's not going to buy.
Is James going to care? He's in East Group A with the Cavs, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Pistons. That seems like a pretty good group for them. Actually, they could do pretty well there.
James, what do you think of the NBA Cup?
Yeah. Is Daryl Morey involved?
He's a liar.
He is. He's a liar, and I'll never be associated with him. OverDrive brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll have Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later this afternoon. Steve Phillips still to come. Mackenzie Hughes coming up as well. And speaking of the NHL and creating content and creating brands, we're going to take a look at 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie each that we think have the ability to create the most content this upcoming season. We'll get to that. We've got a draft coming up later this afternoon too, Gord.
Do I have to study for this?
I hope you're prepared. I've been preparing. I was up all night last night. I've got crib notes, and I'm ready to rock. So we'll tell you about that a little bit later this afternoon. Confirm and deny in about an hour. Gord Miller's in here. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Jays Phillies tonight. Yusei Kikuchi on the mound.
One second.
This is a pretty long intro, Gord. There's only so far we can go with this one. It is a great one. I will give you that, but this one takes a while.
Why not?
We can keep it playing, but
the Stones.
Matt Chapman out of the lineup tonight, still banged up. Bo Bichette, I think, is going to do a rehab stint down in Buffalo. He's going to DH tonight, play short tomorrow. Romano's been activated, so he's back. He's back. But you look at their infield. Espinal is going to play third. DeYoung's going to play short. Biggio's playing second. Not exactly what you're looking for.
Not what they drew up at the start. Not what they drew up at the start of it.
Doesn't scream 90-plus win infield. You got Vladdy playing first tonight, but it's all good because Yusei Kikuchi's on the mound. So Steve Phillips in about a half an hour on the Jays-Phillies series tonight. And Jays coming off a much-needed off day yesterday. They haven't had an off day in a long time. So we'll get to that. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel, but about a month away from camps opening up in the NHL. We figured we'd go across the league here, try to basically project content creators, right? Because we were just talking about it in the previous segment. The NHL's got to do a better job at that.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent on the players to do it. You got to bring it on the ice and then maybe bring some personality off the ice, ideally. But we figured we'd come up with 3 forwards, I guess 2 wingers, a center, 2 defensemen, a goalie. When you project on what could happen in this upcoming season. And I'll give you the floor, Gord. You can take us through your list and who and why you think will be creating content this year.
All 6?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I think number 1 at forward is Connor Bedard. I think we haven't had a player this hyped entering the league maybe since Matthews.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe more than like McDavid, probably.
McDavid.
Yeah.
And I think that what a lot of people want to see is, will the dominance in junior translate to the NHL? Mm-hmm. And I think it will, but I wonder, and I thought you made a great point last week, the 25 goals, 70 points would be a great, or 60 points.
Yeah, 70. I think that's reasonable expectation.
Would be a great year.
Yes, great year.
That would be an outstanding
great year.
And I think you're absolutely right. But I wonder how that's going to play in Chicago, when the expectations are he's going to be McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon, like that kind of first overall pick, who was a franchise-changing player. He's 5'9", right? He's 160 pounds, 170 pounds. He's it's harder for a smaller guy to dominate. It's happened. Is he a center? So I think he's going to be great.
Yeah.
But I'll be interested to see. I think that's going to be an
I agree
conversation.
With you. And I think Chicago's going to be awful. So how does he?
Right. Who gets in the puck?
Exactly.
The second one is Yuri Slavkovsky in Montreal. And first overall last year, I thought Montreal made a huge mistake keeping him as an 18-year-old. I think for the most part, 18-year-olds don't belong in the NHL. And for everyone that does well, 9 don't. He got hurt, which you could say is bad luck. But there are teams that have done studies that have found that teenage players get injured at a higher rate than older players. Mm-hmm. So how does Slavkovsky do this year in Montreal? Because they're
getting nervous, I think, Habs fans.
They planted their flag on Slavkovsky.
First overall, I hope so.
And so how he does will be interesting. The next one is Austin Matthews. And I think, we're a month out.
Yes. And nothing's been signed yet. Is that what you're suggesting?
So I'm going to put an asterisk by this. I'm assuming that Austin Matthews is going to sign. But if come the opening day of training camp, he's not signed. And if the opening day of the regular season comes, he's not signed, I think this becomes an enormous story. Because you're talking about, Ovechkin's the best goal scorer in the game, but of the current crop of players, Matthews is probably the best goal scorer in the game.
So I think the torch has been passed personally,
So Austin Matthews, if he's not signed yet, that becomes a huge
I don't think there's any doubt. And, can he get back to pursuing 60 goals again? Like, he had 41 last year. He had a down year. He didn't have a great start, had some injury issues.
But he still had that's still a great
season, relatively speaking. But for him, it was a drop-off. And you're right. I've had these conversations before that I think the summer's been relatively calm. I think the Leafs and the Matthews camp have done a good job of getting their messaging out, that it's just a formality. Things are going to all come together. If it doesn't happen by day 1 of the season, it's time to officially panic.
Yeah.
People will be asking outwardly, is this guy pulling a fast one?
Right.
Is it now all of a sudden he's just giving that, no, it's all good, it's all good. I'm out of here.
Is that Johnny Gaudreau?
Exactly. No, it's all good. We're going to do this. Yeah. Something's got to give.
On defense, Erik Karlsson. I think that's, he goes from San Jose, a team that wasn't great, bless you, to a team, that's expected to win now.
Yep.
He didn't go there to win within the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's there to win now, and he's expected to be a major contributor. They want the Norris Trophy winner to run their power play, to get the puck to Sid and Gino, to get them,
What's the reasonable point projection for you?
For him?
If I gave you 84.5, would you go over or under?
Under. I'd say 80.
Yeah. That's still a great season.
For phenomenal. We hit 100, over 100 last year. I think that, there's other guys there.
Right.
Letang and other. The puck does move pretty well in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So, and the other guy on defense is Owen Power.
Ooh.
I think that, look, Buffalo fans were impatient with Rasmus Dahlin. He's a star.
Yes, he is. He had a great year.
He's going to win a Norris Trophy within the next few years. He's a terrific player. If Owen Power takes the next step, he had a good year last year. If he takes the next step, if they've got a 1-2 punch with the lean and power, they're in business. They are in business.
I agree with that.
And I think Owen Power's got it in him. He's big. He's rangy. I think the offense will come. I think a lean power 1-2 punch makes Buffalo a team, especially in that division, that can make its presence felt. Now that's, it's been a long time.
It's asking a lot. Yep.
A long time coming for Buffalo, but that might be the one. And in goal, Stuart Skinner in Edmonton. I just think that he was a great story last year.
Is he the number one already, or is Jack Campbell still holding on to that?
So I think he is, but the playoffs didn't go well. Now, that's a 2-week thing. He was terrific all year. They think he's the real deal. He needs to be, because so much is riding on this. If their goaltending is substandard again, then they've got,
well, they're tied up with Campbell. They get 4 more years at $5 million.
Right. If their goaltending is substandard, they don't mind paying Jack Campbell $6 million to wear a ball cap. Like, they're okay with it as long as Skinner's good.
Right. It doesn't matter who it is, but someone's got to do it.
But if Skinner's struggling and Campbell can't get it back together, now you got a problem. And I think that to me is in goal is the biggest story of the year. I think that's because
the Cup expectations are going to be very high, and that's very reasonable in Edmonton. They should be high. They should be expected to legitimately compete and chase the Stanley Cup.
They have 2 of the best players in the world. They start with 2 of the best players in the world.
Yeah, and they got depth. They got their defense is pretty good.
I think Ken Holland's done a good job of. I think people forget in Edmonton they lost Oscar Klefbom, a right-handed shooting defenseman who was going to run their power play, kill penalties. They thought he was going to be their guy. Suffers a career-ending shoulder injury. That's devastating. That's a devastating loss, but they've done a good job of rebuilding that defense. It's pretty good. The forward group's as good as it comes.
Yeah.
And is the goalie good enough?
Whoever. The question.
Right.
That is the question.
That's my 6.
All right, I like it. I can't disagree with really any of those content creators this upcoming season. We'll come back. We'll get to my list. You can give me a full breakdown of how you feel about my explanations, where I'm at. But to recap, Gord's got Connor Bedard, Austin Matthews, Slavkovsky, Erik Karlsson, Owen Power, Stuart Skinner.
I promise I won't shush you on the next Stones intro, because that seemed to bother the Grappler.
Did it? That was bothering the Grappler?
The Grappler took offense to that.
I just don't think we should be shushing the show host.
You're probably making a good point. But
hey, I love that song. It's listen, Gord. If it got to the lyrics a little bit quicker, I would have been with you. But "Gimme Shelter" takes a long time to build up. There's only so much time we can sit here listening to the Stones. We'll play the Stones, but we can't literally listen to the Stones.
Okay.
All right, so we'll come back with my list. It's all good. Steve Phillips in about 20 minutes. Confirm or deny at 5:30. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Steve Phillips in about 15 minutes. Confirm or deny at 5:30. I'm talking content creation in the NHL. We're trying to help people out here. Gord, you went through your list. 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie that you are projecting will be creating a lot of content.
So Bedard, Matthews, Slavkovsky at forward, Karlsson, Power on defense, Skinner in goal.
Yes.
Okay.
And they have the chance to break either way, right? It can be positive or negative.
Either way, they're going to talk about you.
Absolutely. Right? There's no such thing as bad press.
Well, there is, actually.
There can be.
Ask the 45th president.
There can be at times. But, he might argue that's keeping them in the, I don't know. Who knows? That's coming up quick. Before you know it. It's coming up quick. All right, I've got 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goaltender here. I'm going to go with Brad Marchand to start my list because I think it's his team now.
Right.
Bergeron's out. Krejci's out. You've got Pasternak got paid. McAvoy got paid. Lucic is coming back. But a lot of people are doubting the Bruins, myself included, that they're going to take a big step back. That was naturally going to happen anyway. We talked about that.
130 points is tough to replicate.
Wasn't going to replicate. But who are they? What are they? How consistent can they remain without the pillars of the organization?
Okay.
And now it's Brad Marchand's the guy. And does he get crazier now without Bergeron kind of hanging around him to be like, settle down a little bit, please? He with his social media, what he does on Twitter, he's one of one in the NHL. He's one of the most interesting guys in the league. McDavid, I've got because it's an obvious one. He's a skating content creator. Have you seen some of the drills he's been doing in the summer that they've been posting online?
It's crazy.
It's amazing what this guy can do on the ice.
He did a thing with, they do a thing where you do 2 laps around the rink.
Yes.
Under 40 seconds is elite. He was like 34 seconds.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, it's
wild. And what he's capable of doing with the puck, but he hit 60 goals. He hit 150 points. What's next? Now, I think his answer would be a Stanley Cup.
Right.
I mean, obviously.
Or a deep run, at least.
Or at least a deep run. You know, I'm sure international hockey's in the back of his mind, but he's still in his prime. Like, the guy will have the opportunity to score 70 if he can get a couple of breaks, if he can capitalize on the breakaways that he gets. Like, I don't think he's a one and done 60 guy. I'm not expecting 60 again this year necessarily. But I'm saying over the next 5 to 7 years, I think he hits 60 again at some point. And if he does, like, how much further can it go? Okay. Can he push up against 70? Can he push up against 160 points? Seems impossible in the modern game, but he just did what he did. And he's still in his prime. And then I got Bedard for every reason you pointed out. Like, Bedard's an obvious one because I can't wait to see what this guy does at the NHL level. Like, being in the West, it's a little bit different. I saw what he did at the World Juniors, but I don't really know what he's all about in terms of his junior career. I know about the hype. I don't know a lot about the kid personally. Like, I've seen him speak a couple times. Seems relatively reserved, but he's 18. So we'll see. I got Bedard.
Okay.
All right? 2 defensemen. I got Cale Makar, who I think is the best defenseman in the league. And I think when he looked at what Carlson did a year ago, he has the capabilities of 100 points.
You say he's the best defenseman in the league.
Yes.
I wonder if he's not the best defenseman we've seen in the last decade.
Since who would be your last comparison?
Lidstrom.
Yeah?
The way he controlled games.
Yeah.
Now, Nick did it in a different way, but the way that he controlled, Makar controls games at both ends of the rink.
He's a phenomenal player.
He's better defensively than you think. He's not a one-way player.
2 guys that come to mind in the last 10 years that I would put up, maybe there's 3 that I might put up against him. Victor Hedman would be one. Mm-hmm. Hedman at his best, I still think is the most dominating defenseman in the league. I do, even with Makar still. If he's healthy and rocking, because he's 6'6" and a monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doughty in his prime was what he didn't put up the same offense that Makar did. And I would say Duncan Keith in his prime early 2010s. I don't see Weber at the same level. Like, I don't see Weber couldn't skate the same way those guys could. He didn't move the puck. He didn't play with the puck on his stick the same way those guys can.
If you think back to Pronger,
Weber's a great player.
Pronger, Niedermeyer, Lidstrom, that era of
right.
defensemen, that was
pretty much as good as it gets. Yeah. But I look at Makar. I look at that team having a resurgence in the regular season. He's a point-a-game guy anyway. I think he looks at Carlson and says, I'm going to chase that. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 100 points at some point in his career. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened this year. You mentioned Owen Power. I was going to go Rasmus Dahlin. And I just said, I don't know if Buffalo can create the content I'm looking for. There is a Canadian bias here. So instead of going with Dahlin, who I think he had a great year last year, and I think he's made it now, and that's what we're going to see year in, year out. Like, he's just going to be a stud for the next decade. I went with Quinn Hughes, who did he have 76 points, I think, last year? A full year with Tocchet. I think the expectation, you never know what the expectation is, Vancouver, because it feels like they don't know what the hell they're doing. Are they trying to win? Are they trying to lose? Do they think they can win? What do they think they are? It's been a real mess out there. But last year, with how disappointing that was, Patterson was great. Hughes was great. And I think Hughes can do it again this year. And then I got Ilya Samsonov in net. Because everything you said about Skinner and the Oilers, I think Samsonov represents that here in Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
Toronto's got cup aspirations naturally. You got Joseph Woll, who's a rookie behind you. I don't know what to expect out of Joseph Woll over the full campaign.
You've got Martin Jones' insurance.
Insurance, but I think that's what it is, right? Likely with the Marlies, likely skates through waivers and is around when need be, but is not really a true competitor with Samsonov.
If someone plucks him on waivers, if someone gets into injury trouble early in the year and someone plucks him on waivers, that's a problem.
Well, it happens to the Leafs all the time.
It has happened, yes.
The Leafs, every goalie they put on waivers gets picked up. It's shocking.
You're so pessimistic.
Yeah, but it is.
I'm sure not every goaltender.
It's legitimately.
I don't think that's peer reviews.
It's a legit issue that it seems to be the Leafs are the only ones that deal with that. Remember they signed that European goalie and the Coyotes picked him because he had to go through waivers, and Arizona picked him up. And it was like, what are you doing? You stink. You're Arizona. Why? Why did you have to claim him? They claimed him, and he wasn't really good anyway. Like, he didn't go anywhere, but still. Anyway, I think Ilya Samsonov, he's still in a one-year deal, right?
UFA, right?
He's walking into possibly a big contract. See what he's got. There you go. Content creators, we're looking out for you. Looking ahead to the 23-24 season. Steve Phillips coming up. Jays Phillies tonight. Confirm or deny at 5:30. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.